Hello and welcome back to another YouTube video. Today I'm doing the patch 13.18 notes, so if you enjoy the content, like, subscribe, and let's get into it. To begin with, there are a couple of nerfs towards the outliers of the Spirit of Shojin patch, along with a Spirit of Shojin nerf, and then a couple of buffs towards some of the pro picks, which we should see at Worlds this year, alongside a bunch of new skins and adjustments to Bard. So let's get into it. Briar is a new champion coming out in a couple of days, I believe 2, from when this video goes live, and she is a jungler, should be fairly exciting. Got a very kind of nocturne dive heavy playstyle. Being an AD champion, should be interesting to see where she lands. Bard is being adjusted to make him more new player friendly, along with a couple of quality of life changes. So his passive chime stacks are going to go up from 5 to 10, and when you have these stacks, you are now going to have that movement speed carry over for 20 seconds instead of just 7. Allows him to be more mobile around the map, alongside being able to keep it up for more time. His W, Caretaker Shrine, is going to have its accumulate charges over time for a maximum of 2. Alongside that, the cooldown is going to go up, and the Shrine charge time to full heal is going to go from 10 seconds down to 5 seconds, so you can enable that full heal earlier, along with getting that movement speed. And then the Shrine movement speed bonus is going to be 30% decaying over 1.5 seconds to 20 to 30% scaling, with a 0.05 AP ratio. Really encouraging a bit more AP within his build. Definitely pushing him more towards things like your Mandate, possibly Night Harvester even, but definitely going to help Bard. Good quality of life changes, probably a bit of a buff. We might have to tag him next patch if he does end up being too strong, so yeah, good changes there. Gwen is gaining 6 health growth, and her passive towards monsters is going to go from 6 to 10, and plus 10% AP ratio to a plus 50% AP ratio. Overall, really big changes towards Gwen jungle. Going to make her clear speed really fast. Probably going to see her a lot of worlds this year alongside her health growth. She's already a decent pick into a lot of the top meta, with some of the tanks being quite vulnerable to her. Scion, Ornn, to name a few. And yeah, passive going up against jungle monsters, definitely going to help her clear speed, and definitely going to encourage people using her as a flex pick. Irelia is going to have her R cooldown go from 140 to 100 to 125 to 85. I say they should have buffed her more, because Irelia is one of my favourite champs to see at Worlds. This, of course, is subject to opinion, and I know a lot of people don't like Irelia that much in the solo queue, or aren't a huge fan of just seeing her. But overall, I would have said that if they buffed her base health a bit as well, not given her more damage, then she would have definitely seen some play. This, I don't think, is going to be large enough, but we might see a couple of people play it if they are very confident with champion and definitely looking to just kind of dominate lane or the mid game with this pick. Jarvan is going to have his passive damage to on basic attacks go from 8% of target's current health to 6% of target's current health. This is definitely going to hit his clear speed and his overall damage output, but Jarvan is in a very strong spot at the moment. He is really good at ganking, has a really strong build with either the Gordrink or a Stridebreaker into Spirit of Shojin, but overall just going to make him a bit weaker alongside Spirit of Shojin nerfs. Should put him in a healthier spot, but he should still be relatively strong. Castin has his RAP ratio increased from 40% to 60%. This is already live. This isn't actually a new change. They've just put it in this patch notes as this buff went in 13.15. So Castin in a really good spot at the moment. This is just showing that they have changed him pretty good. So Kayn is going to have his healing on Rast go from 20% to 30% based on level to 25% at all ranks. This is definitely going to help Rast in the early game, because Kayn in his current state is definitely lower elo skewed, so nerfing his late game, buffing up a bit of his early, definitely going to help more competitive, like him more towards competitive and elite skew him a bit, rather than Ras being only really strong in low elo. His R is going to have the ratio go down from 30% per 100 bonus AD to 10% per 100 bonus AD, so losing a decent chunk of damage there. Gonna make him a bit harder to make it a bit harder for him to just one-shot people, whilst bringing down his healing later on in the game. Overall, nice changes towards Kayn, stops him from being too strong with the Gordrinker buffs. Kennen is going to have his E energy cost reduced from 100 to 80 to 80 at all ranks, a bit of an early game buff there. He doesn't usually put points into this until last. And his R is going to go from 120 to 80 seconds at levels whenever you put points into this level, so 6, 11, 16. Gonna be big buffs there towards his overall ability to team fight, it's going to mean that he has it usually at all fights rather than possibly not having it up in a couple of them. Overall, pretty big buffs towards Cannon. Definitely going to help him in solo queue more than competitive, most likely, as competitive you're only really going to be fighting around this timer. So yeah, gonna still probably see a bit of Cannon in competitive though, as this on paper does look like a very big buff. Rail is going to be losing some movement speed away from enemies and losing a bit of movement speed towards enemies. 15 to 25 to 12 to 20 away, and 30 to 50 to 24 to 40 towards. This is actually a relatively large buff. We saw what happened to Volibear when he lost a bunch of movement speed towards enemies. It made it quite hard for him to chase. Rail, however, does have a good gap closer in her W, and it's still a large amount of movement speed, so I don't suddenly see this taking her away from jungle or support in pro play. Still going to be a really strong champion, just not as high presence as she currently is. Senna is now having her crit strike ratio removed. Senna, in a really good spot at the moment, is going to be massively buffed by this. This will hit the moment you hit 20 souls within the game, and then it will keep ramping every time you hit that the next 20 mark, and if you pick up crit. So Collector Senna, probably going to be the way you rush, or kind of going to be the item you rush on Senna, no longer being penalized for having Kudra's strike. Yeah, definitely going to make her very strong in that. And her W is now going to give an affliction of her passive. This is also going to be a nice quality of life change. Overall, Senna should be really strong off this change. Definitely going to probably be overpowered as a support. Probably not going to be as strong ADC, but still can work very well with combos like your Tom Kench and a lot of other pairings like Seraphine and a couple of other AP champs. So Senna should be in a very good spot. Fresh is going to have his soul, the soul ratio on his W go up from 1.5 to 2. Pretty big buff there. Definitely going to allow for a bit more shielding within the game. If you're, let's say, going from 50 to 100 souls, it's now going to be 75 to 200 shield on the scaling. Overall, just going to be very big there. I did the maths correctly there. Wait, 50, yeah, oh, wait, if you have 50 souls, then it's 75 here, 100 here. If you have 100 souls, it's going to be 150 here, 200 here. I was doing the math wrong because I was taking two different values. Tryndamere is going to have the health growth go down from 115 to 108, and the base attack damage is going to go from 68 to 66. Overall, these are relatively minor nerfs towards Tryndamere. He's in a very good spot at the moment with the attack range increase, and he has some relatively strong builds, being things like your Kraken Stride Breaker, Hole Breaker. Should still be in a relatively strong spot, even with these nerfs, both good and mid and top, so definitely keep playing him. Xayah is going to have her base health growth go down from 660 to 630, and the health growth is going to go up from 102 to 107, so by the time you hit level 7, this should even back out. Then, and therefore, thereon, you're going to only gain health, so going to be a bit of a late game buff, but this is definitely going to hurt her early game more, with her E cooldown going from 11 to 9 to 13 to 9. So big nerfs towards Xayah early game, definitely going to hurt her on competitive, but still probably going to stay relatively fine in solo queue, if not probably losing about 0.5 to 1% win rate. Crown of the Shattered Queen is going to have the ability power go up from 70 to 85. The Safeguard is now going to go from 75% damage reduction for 1.5 seconds to 40% damage reduction for 2.5 seconds. So more uptime, less damage reduction, and the Crown will no longer provide 10 to 40 AP when the shield holds. So overall, this should be it should be power neutral. I don't see this being a huge buff towards the item. I could be wrong, but this level of damage reduction probably doesn't protect people as much as they believe, and the ability power going from 70 to 85 from being 10 to 40 when the shield was the shield holds, I don't see being a big enough compensation, but we'll see. It could be that the item is good, but I don't see it from just these changes alone. I think it will either need a bit more AP, or the damage reduction would have to be a bit higher to really merit going this item. Spirit Shogun is going to have its attack damage go down from 60 to 55. Small buff, small nerf here. Overall, the item is performing quite well on a lot of champions, but they'll probably get nerfed if after this the item still works relatively strong on them. Static Shiv is going to have its AD go up from 45 to 50, making a pretty good stat stick item, and the Electro Shot minion damage is going to go from 250 to 350 to 200 flat. Overall, you're not really going to be building this item so much for the for the passive on it, mainly just as a stat stick. Stormraiser is going to have its AD go up from 50 to 55, and then Clash, not going to be this. Oh, it's going to be this weekend. Not a huge amount of changes from the last one, I believe. Actually, no, it would be a large amount because the last one was an 8-round Clash. So yeah, I might make a Clash tier list on Friday to go in depth of what works, what kind of team comps you want to look at, stuff like that. Champion ability icon updates. These are a decent amount of them. I see people complain about them, but overall, I still think it's good that we're getting updates towards champions, just icons to make it more visual, to increase visual clarity. So that's also pretty good. Arena rank rewards will begin distribution on September the 18th. Mythic shop rotation, bunch of bug fixes and quality of life changes, a couple of splash arts for a new skin line, and Crystal Motors Talia, which is the next Hex Tech skin, with Hex Tech crafting skin. So overall, nice amount of changes there. Should be a relatively exciting patch, as a lot of things have been adjusted over the last couple of patches, and hopefully Worlds will be exciting, as this is the second to last patch. 30.19 is what Worlds is going to be played on, so they should clean up a bunch of changes and probably push a bunch of exciting champs there. Overall, thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next one. Goodbye.